The desert sun beat down on the tarmac at Edwards like it had something to prove. Captain Evelyn Thorne stood beside her husband's F-15, one hand shading her eyes, the other resting on the fuselage that was still warm from the morning's flight tests. Richard Thorne was checking the weapon systems for the third time. He always checked 3 times. It was one of the things that made him the best pilot at Groom Lake. "You're being paranoid again," Evelyn said. She was smiling, but her voice carried an edge. They both knew what they were testing today. What they'd been testing for 6 months, ever since the Air Force had quietly transferred them from Edwards to the facility everyone pretended didn't exist. "Paranoid keeps you alive," Richard replied. He was 41, going grey at the temples, with the kind of calm that came from flying combat missions over places the government would never officially admit he'd been. "Besides, if the readings are right, we're not testing our equipment today, we're testing theirs." Evelyn looked up at the sky. Clear, painfully clear, the kind of October day that made you believe nothing bad could happen. She was wrong. The radar station picked it up at 1300 hours, something coming in fast from high orbit, not a satellite, not a meteor, not anything in the database of every object humanity had ever put into space. By 1315, the alert had gone up the chain of command. By 1320, every fighter at Edwards was scrambling. By 1325, Richard Thorne was in the air, with his wingman call sign Hawk 2. Evelyn watched them go from the command center. She was holding their daughter's hand. Lillian was 8 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn refusal to be afraid of anything. "Is Daddy going to shoot down the UFO?" Lillian asked. Evelyn squeezed her hand. "Daddy's just going to take a look, sweetheart. That's what test pilots do. They look at things so the rest of us know what we're dealing with." The thing is, Evelyn wasn't just a pilot's wife. She was a captain too, an engineer, one of 12 people in the United States who understood the technology they had been reverse engineering from the crash site in New Mexico. The one everyone knew about, but nobody talked about. She knew what that radar signature meant. She knew her husband was flying towards something that could cross the distance from orbit to atmosphere in 90 seconds. She knew that F-15s, even the modified ones Richard was flying, were built to fight other jets, not ships that traveled between stars. And she knew somewhere deep in her chest where fear lives before it becomes thought that she was about to lose him. The communication came in at 1332. Richard's voice calm and professional, even as his instruments were screaming at him. "Command, this is Hawk 1. Visual confirmation on bogey. It's Jesus Christ, it's bigger than a 747. No wings, no visible propulsion, moving at Mach 12 and decelerating." Colonel Garrett Ashford was standing next to Evelyn in the command center. He was 31 years old, already decorated. From a war, the Pentagon still classified with a voice that never got louder than it needed to be. "Hawk 1, maintain distance," Ashford ordered. "Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. We need imagery, not contact." "Copy that command. Maintaining 2 miles separation. Hawk 2, stay on my 6. For 90 seconds, they watched the radar screen. 2 small green dots representing the most advanced fighters America had ever built. 1 massive red signature representing something humanity had only theorized about. Then the red signature stopped moving. Just stopped. Dead in the air. 20,000 feet above the Mojave Desert. Hovering like physics was a suggestion it could choose to ignore. Command bogey has achieved stationary hover. No visible means of support. Infrared is showing 0 heat signature. Magnetic field readings are off the scale. This thing is bending space around it. We're not looking at propulsion, we're looking at gravity manipulation. Evelyn felt Lillian's hand tighten in hers. "Mom, why does Daddy sound scared?" "He's not scared, baby. He's excited. Your dad loves puzzles." It was a lie. Evelyn could hear the fear in Richard's voice. The same fear she was feeling. The fear that came from understanding in one terrible moment that humanity was not alone and might not be at the top of the food chain. The ship opened fire at 1334. No warning, no communication, no demand for surrender or attempt at contact. Just a beam of light that crossed 2 miles of empty air in less than a millisecond and turned Hawk 2 into an expanding ball of superheated vapor. Hawk 2 is down. Hawk 2 is down. Richard's voice no longer calm, no longer professional, just human, just terrified. Hawk, 1 evade, get out of there. But Richard Thorne wasn't running. Richard Thorne was turning his fighter toward the alien ship, arming every missile he had, preparing to do what every pilot is trained to do when their wingman dies. Make it count. Command, tell Eve I love her. Tell Lillian Daddy's sorry, he's going to miss her birthday. Richard, no. Evelyn was screaming now. Protocols forgotten, rank forgotten, everything forgotten except the fact that her husband was about to die. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. The missiles launched, 6 of them. AIM-120 Abrams, the best air-to-air missiles in the American arsenal. They covered the distance in 8 seconds. The alien ship's defensive system destroyed them half a mile out. Didn't even try to evade, just emitted some kind of pulse that made the missiles explode harmlessly in mid-air. Then it fired again, this time at the command center. Garrett Ashford saw it coming, saw the ship rotate 30 degrees, saw the same weapon that had vaporized Hawk 2 begin to glow with lethal light. He had maybe 2 seconds to react. He grabbed Evelyn with his right arm, grabbed Lillian with his left, threw himself and both of them through the doorway into the hardened bunker that Edwards had built during the Cold War when the enemy they feared came from Moscow, not the stars. The beam hit the command center at 13:35. Ashford felt his right arm burning. Actually burning, the thermal radiation was so intense it flash-cooked his flesh even through his flight suit. He heard Evelyn screaming, heard Lillian crying, heard the entire command center collapse behind them as the beam cut through concrete and steel like they were paper. Then he heard the explosion, Richard's fighter, hitting the ship. Not with missiles, the missiles were gone. Richard had rammed it, 400 miles per hour of American-built titanium in jet fuel, and one pilot who decided that if he was going to die, he was taking this thing with him. It didn't work. The ship's shields absorbed the impact. Evelyn would later calculate that the kinetic energy was equivalent to 12 tons of TNT. The ship didn't even wobble, but it did leave. Accelerated straight up, Mach 20 in under 3 seconds. Gone into orbit, gone into space, gone, leaving behind burning wreckage, 37 dead personnel, 1 destroyed command center, and 3 people in a bunker, one of whom would never use his right arm again, one of whom had just watched her husband commit suicide by alien spacecraft, and 1 8-year-old girl who would never feel safe looking at the stars again. Garrett Ashford looked at his arm. The skin was black, charred. He could smell his own flesh cooking. The pain hadn't hit yet. Shock was still protecting him. That would end soon. He looked at Evelyn. She was staring at the ceiling. Not crying, not screaming anymore. Just staring. Her eyes were empty, hollow. The look of someone whose entire world had just ended and who hadn't quite processed it yet. He looked at Lillian. The girl was shaking, clutching her mother, making small wounded sounds like an animal in a trap. "Eve," Ashford said quietly. His voice was very calm, very steady. "Eve, I need you to listen to me." No response. "Captain Thorne, I need you to look at me." Slowly, very slowly, Evelyn's eyes focused on him. "Richard is dead," Ashford said. "Hawk 2 is dead. 37 personnel are dead. The aliens have technology we can't match. They attacked us without provocation, without warning, without mercy. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Evelyn nodded, barely, just the tiniest movement of her head. "This is going to happen again," Ashford continued. "Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they know where we are now. They know we can't stop them. They will come back. And when they do, more people will die. More Lillians will lose their fathers. More wives will watch their husbands burn. Unless we do something about it. Do you understand?" Another nod. Stronger this time. "I'm going to make you a promise, Eve. We're going to take that ship's wreckage. We're going to learn everything about it. We're going to build something better. And the next time they come, we're going to be ready. But I need you with me. I need your brain. I need your engineering. I need you to help me make sure that what happened today never happens again. Can you do that? Evelyn looked down at Lillian, at her daughter, at the little girl who was shaking and crying and would have nightmares about this day for the rest of her life. When she looked back up at Ashford, her eyes weren't hollow anymore. They were hard, cold, determined. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I can do that." "Good, then let's get to work." They buried Richard Thorne with full military honors 3 days later. Closed casket. There wasn't enough left of him or his fighter to fill a coffin, but they did it anyway, because that's what you do. You honor the dead, you remember the sacrifice. Evelyn stood at the grave with Lillian watching them fold the flag, watching them hand it to her with practiced solemnity, watching them salute. She didn't cry, couldn't cry. All the tears had dried up somewhere between the bunker and the morgue and the classified briefing where they told her that Richard's death was being officially attributed to catastrophic mechanical failure during a routine test flight. Lillian cried enough for both of them. Garrett Ashford stood beside them. His right arm was gone, amputated at the shoulder. The burns had been too severe, too deep. The doctors had tried to save it, spent 18 hours in surgery, trying to rebuild tissue that had been cooked down to the bone. In the end, they'd taken the arm. Better to lose a limb than die from infection. Ashford didn't cry either, just stood there, ramrod straight, saluting with his left hand. It wasn't protocol. You're supposed to salute with your right. But Ashford's right hand was in a medical waste incinerator somewhere. And Richard Thorne deserved a salute, so he gave one anyway. After the ceremony, after the other mourners had drifted away, after Lillian had finally cried herself into exhausted silence, Evelyn and Ashford stood alone at the grave. "They're going to cover this up," Evelyn said. "Classify it, bury it, pretend it never happened." "Yes," Ashford agreed. "They will. And then they're going to forget, move on, convince themselves that it was an isolated incident, that the aliens won't come back, that we're safe. Probably. But we won't forget, will we?" Ashford looked at her, really looked at her, saw the widow who had lost everything, saw the mother trying to protect her daughter, saw the engineer who understood exactly how outmatched humanity had been. And he saw something else, something harder, colder, something that scared him a little bit. He saw purpose. "No," he said quietly. "We won't forget, and we won't forgive, and we won't stop until we're ready." "How long?" Evelyn asked. "How long will it take to build what we need?" Ashford thought about that, thought about the wreckage they'd recovered, thought about the technology gap, thought about how far humanity would have to climb to match what they'd seen. 30 years, he said finally. Maybe 40. If we're lucky and the funding doesn't dry up, if we can keep it secret, if we can recruit the right people, if we can reverse engineer what we found without blowing ourselves up in the process. That's a lot of ifs. Yes, Evelyn looked down at Lillian, at her daughter, at the little girl who would grow up without a father because humanity wasn't ready for what was out there. "We have 37 years, she said. "What?" "Lillian will be 45 in 37 years. Old enough to have children of her own, old enough to be a grandmother. I want her to live in a world where she can look at the stars without being afraid, where her children can look at the stars without being afraid, where no mother ever has to watch her husband die because we weren't prepared." She turned to Ashford. Her eyes were dry, her voice was steady. 37 years, she repeated. "That's how long we have to build our answer. That's how long we have to make sure this never happens again." Ashford studied her face, saw the determination, saw the pain beneath it, saw the woman who was about to spend the rest of her life preparing for a war that might never come. "All right," he said, 37 years, starting now." They shook hands over Richard Thorne's grave, a promise made in silence, a pact sealed in grief. Neither of them knew in that moment that they would keep that promise, that 37 years later, almost to the day, Evelyn Thorne would stand on the bridge of a warship that shouldn't exist and give the order that would change the galaxy forever. But they would, because some promises aren't meant to be broken. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. And some species, when you push them far enough, push back harder than you can possibly imagine. 37 years later, Nexus Station, Neutral Space, October 12, 2025. Ambassador Garrett Ashford woke up at 0500 hours like he had every day for the last 3 years. Like he had every day since he'd arrived at Nexus Station to take up his post as humanity's diplomatic observer. Observer, the word tasted like ash in his mouth. He sat up in his quarters and looked at his right arm, the prosthetic one, titanium and composite polymers and neural interfaces that let him feel pressure and temperature and almost made him forget that the real arm was 37 years gone. Almost. He flexed the fingers. Perfect response time, perfect articulation, better than human, stronger, more precise, never tired, never trembled, but it was still a reminder. Ashford made coffee, real coffee from beans he'd brought from Earth. He drank it black standing at the window, looking out at Nexus Station, hanging in neutral territory. He thought about Richard Thorne's fighter burning in the desert. He thought about Evelyn Thorne's face at the funeral, dry-eyed and cold. He thought about Lillian, 8 years old, and crying asking why. And he thought about the promise, 37 years ago, over a grave in California. His neural implant chimed softly, encrypted, quantum locked, Sentinel Prime status, active fleet position, holding at waypoint Sierra 7, authorization code awaiting nightfall protocol. Admiral Thorne sends. The door is ready, old friend. Just say the word. Ashford smiled at his reflection. 37 years, he said quietly. Let's see if it was worth it. The conference room was exactly as it had been for 3 years. Circular table, chairs for different physiologies, atmospheric controls, and the representatives of 4 great empires. War matriarch Zalreth of the Sector Empire, 7 feet tall, scales shifting colors with mood. Right now, mottled green-red, agitated, aggressive, crystalline Chancellor Vorahan of the Hegemony, living crystal chiming softly when he moved. Hive overmined the Zektar of the Collective, chitinous, insectoid, one consciousness across billions. Luminary Shailene of the Celestial Alliance, pure light so bright she required filters to look at. These were humanity's neighbors, ancient powers, thousands of years old, and they were about to make the mistake of their very long lives. Galreth spoke first. The Threshold Sector dispute continues. Hegemony mining ships have violated sector sovereignty 17 times this month. Voran chimed with amusement. Disputed territory. The hegemony has as much right as the sector empire. Perhaps, Zektar buzzed, the Hive should remind you we claimed those systems 2 millennia ago. The Celestial Alliance was there first, Shailene interjected, 4,000 years before the Hive. Ashford listened, took notes, said nothing. 3 years of this, same arguments, same threats, same political maneuvering. 2 hours in, Ashford raised his hand. The human observer wishes to speak, Zalreth asked with amusement. Perhaps a compromise, neutral territory, resources shared equally. Vorahan began to chime, crystal breaking, laughter. Shared resources, overseen by humanity. The species with 12 systems, you would arbitrate between millennia-old empires. Your suggestions are irrelevant, Zalreth interrupted. Humanity has no military power, no economic influence, no authority. You are observers. You watch, you listen, you learn. You do not participate. Ashford nodded slowly, playing the part. Of course, matriarch, I apologize. The negotiations continued, devolved, territory to accusations, to threats, to ultimatums. By hour 8, something shifted. Zalreth leaned back, scales shifting to calculating orange. Perhaps the solution is simpler. Buffer zones, neutral territory between our empires. The Celestial Alliance supports this, Shailin said. Where would these buffers be? Vorahan asked. Zalrith's scales shifted to pleasant green. Human space. The room went still. Ashford looked up slowly, face showing nothing. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Human space, 12 star systems, positioned perfectly between our territories. If redistributed, they would serve as ideal buffer zones, preventing conflict, promoting peace. You're suggesting humanity surrender its territory, reallocation for the greater good, for galactic stability. Voran's chimes became thoughtful. The hegemony finds merit. Several human systems contain resources we could utilize. The hive agrees, Zektar buzzed. Human colonies are inefficient. Hive oversight would improve productivity 47%. The Celestial Alliance, Shailin said, light growing brighter, would guide humanity through this transition. Help them understand that sacrifice benefits the whole. We could administer their worlds benevolently. Ashford set down his stylus, placed both hands flat on the table, prosthetic and real, both steady. You're talking about dividing up human civilization like territory to be claimed. A solution that prevents war, Zalrith corrected. Surely humanity understands peace. And if we refuse, Zalrith's scales shifted to black. Finality. Let us be honest. Humanity has 200 escort vessels. The Sector Empire alone has 4,000 warships. Combined, we represent overwhelming force. If humanity refuses, what would you do to stop us? The question hung like a blade. Voran chimed softly. We prefer cooperation, but if not forthcoming, we possess other means. Trade embargoes, resource restrictions. Humanity depends on galactic commerce. The Hive calculates 92% probability of successful occupation with minimal casualties, Zektar said. The Celestial Alliance would grieve conflict, Shailin added. But sometimes guidance requires firmness. If humanity cannot see wisdom in cooperation, perhaps firmer guidance becomes necessary. Ashford looked around the table at 4 representatives who had just casually discussed conquering his species. He thought about Richard, burning. He thought about Evelyn, making a promise. He thought about Lillian, asking why. He thought about the fleet, 3 light months away, waiting. For 37 years, humanity had prepared. For 37 years, they'd been lying. Time to stop. Ashford stood, gathered his notes, looked at each representative. I need to contact my government. This requires official response. Of course, Zalrith said. Satisfied read. Take your time, though not too long. Humanity's cooperation or resistance is ultimately a minor detail. Ashford nodded, walked to the door, stopped, turned. One question. Yes. New Terra, one of our 12 systems. Agricultural colony, 2 million people, no strategic value, no resources. What about it? If you divide our space, which of you gets New Terra? They looked at each other. Galreth shrugged, determined by division specifics. Why is it important personally? Ashford was quiet. My best friend is buried there. His 8-year-old daughter died 37 years ago, killed by a sector reconnaissance ship, without provocation, just murdered, then left. The room went still. I stood at their graves, made a promise that this would never happen to anyone else, that humanity would be ready, that next time someone threatened us, we'd have an answer. He smiled, not pleasant. I wanted you to know before. Before what? Ashford touched his neural implant. One word, one code, nightfall. Before you meet what we built. He walked out. 4 Empire representatives looked at each other in confusion, wondering what the harmless old human meant. They would learn soon enough. 3 light months away, Fleet Admiral Evelyn Thorne received the message. 62 years old, grey hair in severe bun, uniform perfectly pressed, eyes cold, hard, focused, waiting for 37 years. The message decoded Nightfall authorized protocol. Active Admiral Thorne. The door is open. Thorne stood, looked at her crew. Attention all hands. Protocol Nightfall is active. All units decloak on my mark. Time to show them what we've built. She paused, thought about Richard, Lillian. For 37 years we've been observers, weak, harmless. Today that ends. They learn the door was locked from the inside and we've been behind it, waiting, building, preparing. She took a breath. All ships, decloak, jump to Nexus, standard formation. Throughout the fleet, stealth systems deactivated. Not 12, not 100, 240 warships, led by UES Retribution. 3.2 kilometers of composite armor and weapons 4 empires couldn't classify. The answer to a promise made 37 years ago. Thorne sat back. Richard, Lillian, I kept my word. Watch what Mommy built. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Destination Nexus Station. ETA 6 hours. His station commander Telvar had managed Nexus for 43 years. He had seen diplomatic incidents, near wars, trade disputes, but he had never seen his entire sensor array go insane. So multiple contacts, very large, appearing at system edge. Delvar pulled up tactical. What he saw made no sense. How many? 12. No 16. 24. Sir, the count keeps changing. Power readings impossible. Mass calculations contradictory. Visual. The screen flickered, showed empty space. Then like a curtain drawn back, 12 massive warships materialized. Grey, dark grey, storm clouds and gunmetal. No windows, no seams. Smooth surfaces absorbing sensor scans. Huge. Largest sector cruiser 2 kilometers. These ships 3.2. Each one. Dreadnoughts dwarfing anything known. Gods, Delvar whispered. Sir, transmission, audio, broadcasting every channel, every frequency. Play it. Female voice, human, calm, absolute certainty. Nexus Control, Fleet Admiral Evelyn Thorne, United Earth Expeditionary Space Force, requesting dock permission. I have diplomatic business. My shuttle launches shortly. The rest of my fleet will maintain position. Wouldn't want to crowd facilities. Telvar stared at 12 warships. Rest of your fleet. Those 12. Pause. He could hear the smile. Oh, those no commander. Just the Retribution class dreadnoughts. The rest is still arriving. That's when sensors went from insane to deranged. 12 ships joined by dozens more, appearing from stealth, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, frigates, things he'd never seen. Count climbed 20, 50, 100, 240 human warships. Perfect formation, hanging like a threat made real. Nexus Control, my shuttle launches now, 30 minutes. Please inform Ambassador Ashford I'm coming. And inform Empire representatives we should talk. All of us. Transmission ended. Delvar sat, forearms hanging limply, staring at more firepower than assembled since the last war 3 centuries ago. Get me the conference room, now. Find Empire fleets. This day just got much worse. In the conference room, 4 representatives were arguing about dividing human space when Telvar's panicked call came. Apologies for interrupting. Significant situation. Multiple human warships appeared at system edge, transmitting tactical data. Jalreth pulled up her display, looked again. Scales shifted rapidly from satisfied red through confusion orange to shock white. 12 ships. Humans showed 12. This is impressive. Matriarch, please check scale and note 240 ships in formation, not 12. The 12 are simply largest. Voran's crystalline body chimed rapidly. Breaking glass, stress fractures. Impossible. Human manufacturing cannot support this. Our intelligence shows fewer than 300 total vessels, including cargo. This must be error. Not error, Chancellor. Admiral Thorne requested dock permission, says she has diplomatic business. Zektar's mandibles clicked frantically. Hive collective processing, trying to make sense. Anomalous signatures throughout system. These ships did not travel normal space. They appeared, materialized, using stealth we cannot classify. Propulsion we cannot identify. Hive Collective is concerned. Concerned. Zalreth's scales now fully white. We just threatened their civilization and they parked 240 warships on our doorstep. Shaylin's light dimmed to barely a glow. Voice subdued. Perhaps this is misunderstanding. Perhaps humans simply wish to demonstrate they're not defenseless. Need not escalate. 240 warships is not demonstration, Zalreth snapped. It's declaration. The door opened. Garrett Ashford walked in. Face calm, but eyes bright, sharp. Someone who'd waited very long for this exact moment. Ah, you've met the fleet. Good. Saves time. Admiral Thorne docks in 25 minutes. I suggest we prepare. She's been looking forward to meeting you. Very much. You knew, Vorahan said. Chimes sharp, accusatory. 3 years, and you knew. Of course, I helped build them. Ashford walked to his seat, sat, folded hands, prosthetic gleaming. Did you think humanity would sit 3 years listening to dismissal, belittlement, threats without contingency? Did you believe we were that naive? You lied, Zalreth said, scales shifting white and black. Shock and rage. No matriarch, we simply didn't tell truth. There's a difference. You never asked about more ships, you assumed, based on intelligence, observations. Certainty that species as young as ours couldn't build anything you couldn't detect. Ashford leaned forward. You assumed wrong. How? Zektar demanded. Hive monitors all human shipyards, tracks construction. We would have known. You monitored yards we let you see. Construction we wanted tracked. Every cargo vessel, every transport, all 200 escorts visible, operating as expected. Ashford smiled. Other yards, Mars, Europa, Titan, asteroid belt, built underground, built deep space, operating 37 years while you assumed we were learning to walk those you didn't see, because we didn't want you to. 37 years, Shaylin whispered, since your sector ship killed my best friend and his 8-year-old daughter. We've been preparing, building, training, waiting for you to show who you really were. When you moved from dismissing to threatening, when you decided human lives were negotiable, territory disposable, sovereignty optional. Ashford stood, walked to window, looked at fleet hanging like a promise kept. Today, you showed us who you are. Now we'll show you who we are. And I think Matriarch Chancellor Overmind Luminary, you'll find it illuminating. Conference room fell silent. Outside, Admiral Thorne's shuttle approached. Inside, 4 representatives realized they'd made terrible mistake. Balance of galaxy had shifted. Violently. Irrevocably. Forever Admiral Evelyn Thorne walked Nexus corridors flanked by 6 Marines in powered armor. Matte black. Seamless. Energy field generators shimmering. Each Marine carried rifle deceptively simple. Kinetic accelerators, magnetic rails punching through composite armor or incapacitating without killing. Marines said nothing. Presence said everything. Station personnel stopped to stare. 4 armed administrators, crystalline technicians, insectoid workers, energy beings, all frozen, watching small human woman in black uniform walk like she owned the station. Thorne's uniform was different from Ashford's diplomatic grey. Military, sharp, insignia no database recognized. Phoenix on collar, Starfielder on shoulders, and on chest above name single medal, made from melted titanium recovered from Richard's fighter, engraved with 2 names, Richard Thorne, Lillian Thorne, reminder, promise, reason, worn every day for 37 years. Today, finally it meant something. Commander Thelvar met them at diplomatic section entrance, all 4 arms trembling. Admiral Thorne, welcome. The Empire representatives are waiting. Thank you, Commander. Any communications from Empire fleets? Yes. Sector moving to defensive positions. Hegemony powering weapons. Hive deploying swarms. Celestial Alliance attempting diplomatic channels. Thorn nodded. Expected. Please transmit following to all Empire fleet commanders. Audio. Maximum broadcasts. She waited for green light. Fleet Admiral Evelyn Thorne, United Earth Expeditionary Space Force. To all Empire military units in Nexus system. Stand down. Power down weapons. Maintain current positions. Any hostile action against human vessels will be met with immediate overwhelming response. Any attempt to target Nexus will be considered act of war against humanity. 5 minutes to comply. After that, we consider you hostile and act accordingly. Thorn out. Telvar's arms stopped trembling, started shaking. Admiral, respectfully, over 400 Empire warships in system. Your 240, while impressive, are outnumbered. Thorn looked at him, really looked, eyes cold, hard, ancient. Commander, you're looking at ships we wanted you to see, the ones we revealed. Would you like to know how many are still hidden? Yes. No, you really wouldn't, trust me. Now excuse me, I have a meeting, 37 years overdue. She walked past toward conference room. Marines followed. Perfect synchronization. Wall of black armor and barely contained violence. Delvar watched them go, then activated personal emergency protocols. Station commanders they hoped never to need. Prepared for evacuation. Catastrophic failure. War. He had a feeling he'd need them. Conference room door opened. Admiral Evelyn Thorne walked in. 4 Empire representatives looked at her. Small woman with grey hair and cold eyes. Marines behind her. Insignia on uniform. Medal on chest. Garrett Ashford stood, smiled. Genuine, first real smile in 3 years. Eve, good to see you. Garrett, thank you for your service. 37 years is long to wait. Some promises take time. Thorne nodded, turned to 4 representatives, studied them. Expression gave nothing away. War Matriarch Zalreth. Crystalline Chancellor Voran, Hive Overmind Zektar, Luminary Shailin. Thank you for meeting. I understand you were discussing how to divide human space. Please, don't let me interrupt. I'd very much like to hear how you plan to accomplish that. Jalreth's scales were black, solid black, rage barely controlled. You dare threaten us, bring warships to diplomatic station. Violation of every treaty protocol. Every assumption you made about humanity. Thorne interrupted. Yes, tell me, Matriarch, when your reconnaissance ship entered Earth's atmosphere 37 years ago and killed 43 people, including my husband and 8-year-old daughter, did that violate treaties, protocols? Room went silent. I thought not, because there were no treaties. Your empire considers itself above such things when dealing with lesser species. So forgive me if I'm not particularly concerned about diplomatic niceties right now. Thorne walked to table, set down small device, activated it. Holographic display appeared. Footage, recordings, conversations. For 37 years we've been listening. Every communication, every strategy session, every private conversation discussing human weakness, vulnerability, resources that could be exploited. Hologram showed sector commanders discussing invasion routes, hegemony economists calculating colony value, hive strategists analyzed occupation patterns, celestial missionaries planning to guide development. You thought encryption was unbreakable, quantum channels secure, communications private. Thorne smiled. Not pleasant. They weren't, because the encryption algorithms you use, the ones you've used 40 years, the ones adopted from ancient technology. Hegemony supposedly discovered in derelict ship. She paused. We built those algorithms, designed them with backdoors, access points, ways to listen to everything you said, planned, threatened. Then we just gave them to you, let you find them. Adopt them. Become dependent. Vorahan's crystalline body chimed sharply. Several cracks appeared. Hegemony equivalent of shock. That's impossible. Those algorithms are centuries old. Humanity didn't have interstellar capability when we crashed a ship in hegemony space loaded with technology we wanted you to find. When we made sure your salvage teams recovered, just enough to be useful but not suspicious. When we essentially handed you tools to make yourselves vulnerable while thinking you were becoming secure. She leaned forward. Chancellor, we've been playing this game longer than you think, better than you can imagine. Zector's mandibles clicked rapidly. Drum roll, hive processing, recalculating, attempting to reconcile known with learned. Hive does not understand. Human civilization, 50 years old in space. You could not have planned this, executed this. Timeline does not work. You're right, if you assume humanity only became space capable 50 years ago. But what if we were preparing before that? What if first human ships you detected were not actually first? What if we were already out here watching building before you knew we existed? She activated another hologram. Mars, Europa, Titan, construction facilities looking decades old. Shipyards operating in secret since before any empire made first contact. We learned from your mistake with us. You showed your hand too early, showed you were dangerous before we were ready to defend ourselves. So we made different choice. We hid, built in secret, became harmless neighbors while building most powerful military in galaxy. And we waited for you to show who you really were. She looked at each of them. Today you showed us. You voted unanimously to divide human civilization, take our worlds, treat our sovereignty as something optional, negotiable, disposable. Voice became very quiet, very cold. That was a mistake. Shaylin's light flickered weakly. Admiral Celestial Alliance meant no harm. We genuinely believed we could help humanity, guide you, protect you from yourselves, Thorn interrupted. Yes, I heard that part. Tell me, Luminary, how many species have you guided over centuries? How many civilizations have you helped by taking away autonomy, their right to make own mistakes, freedom to choose own path? Shaylin was silent. That's what I thought. Here's what you don't understand about humanity. We don't want guides, don't want protectors, don't want benevolent overlords who know what's best. We want to be left alone, build our own civilization, make our own mistakes, succeed or fail on our own terms. Thorn stood. But since you can't leave us alone, since you insist on treating us like children needing supervision, we'll have to teach you a lesson about what happens when you underestimate humanity, threaten humanity, make catastrophic mistake of thinking because we're young, we're weak. She looked at Zalreth. Matriarch, you said humanity has no military power. Said Sector Empire alone has 4,000 warships. Said numbers win wars. Jalreth's scales still black, but white creeping at edges. Fear mixing with rage. Would you like to test that theory? You cannot be serious. You're threatening Sector Empire with 240 ships. No, Matriarch. I'm not threatening. I'm demonstrating there's a difference. Thorn activated neural implant. Spoke one word. Aegis. Outside Nexus Retribution class, Dreadnought at center of formation began to glow. Soft blue light spreading across hull. Energy fields activating. Systems coming online. Sector fleet moving into attack formation was suddenly bathed in same blue light. Then, ship by ship, their weapons went dark. Navigation systems crashed. Targeting computers failed. Missile launchers froze. Energy cannons powered down. 200 sector warships, pride of Empire, best fleet. They had become nothing more than expensive metal floating in space. Life support worked. Engines functioned. Crews unharmed. But every single offensive system simply gone. Disabled. Erased. As if someone reached into ships and flipped switch. In conference room, Xalreth stared at tactical display in horror. What? What did you do? I turned off your weapons, Matriarch. No one hurt, no ships destroyed. Your crews perfectly safe. They just can't shoot anyone anymore. Consider it demonstration of gap between our technologies. The gap you didn't know existed. The gap we've been carefully cultivating 37 years. Thorn looked at tactical display. 200 helpless sector ships. Hegemony fleet stopped advancing. Hive swarms pulled back. Celestial vessels broadcasting surrender signals. Here's what's happening. We're having a conversation, real conversation, about what humanity is, what we're capable of, what we're willing to do, and what we're not. And you're going to listen, really listen, not with arrogance of empires thinking they know everything, but with humility of species who just learned they don't. She sat, folded hands on table. Let's start with a question. Why do you think we waited 37 years? Why build all this capability and then just sat on it, just watched, just listened, just let you threaten without responding? No one answered. Because we wanted to be sure. Wanted to know if you were genuinely dangerous or just posturing. If you would choose cooperation or conquest when given opportunity. If you were empires we could coexist with, or empires we needed to be ready to fight. She looked at each. Today, you answered that question. You chose conquest. You chose to treat human lives as negotiable, human sovereignty as optional, and doing so you showed us exactly who you are. Now, Thorn said, standing and walking to the window, I'm going to tell you a story about what happened after you made that choice, about the war you don't remember yet, because from your perspective it hasn't happened. But from mine, I've already fought it, already won it, already decided how it ends. She turned back to them. It's called the 60-Day War, and it starts now. Thorn activated her neural implant. All units, this is Admiral Thorn. Execute Protocol Fenrir. Target all sector military installations in Threshold Sector. Evacuate civilians. 24-hour warning. Then dismantle their fortresses. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Outside, the fleet moved. Not just the 240 visible ships, more ships decloaked. 40 more, 60 more, 100 more. 340 human warships moving to strategic positions throughout the Nexus system and beyond. In the conference room, all 4 representatives were staring at tactical displays showing the impossible. You have more. Voran's chimes were discordant, panicked. I have enough, Thorn said simply. More than enough to dismantle every military installation you have. Every fortress, every shipyard, every weapons platform, and I'm going to do it. Starting with the sector since they fired first, then the hegemony, then the hive, then the celestials. She looked at Jalreth. Unless you surrender, now, unconditionally, all of you. This is madness, Jalreth said. Scales pure white, pure terror. You would start a war that kills billions. No matriarch, I'm preventing one. By showing you that war is impossible, that you've already lost, that the only rational choice is peace. Thorn walked back to the table. Let me tell you how the 60-day war goes. Day 3, I target your fortress planet in the Threshold Sector. The one that should take months to crack. I crack it in 6 hours. Not with bombardment, with something else. Something you can't defend against. She activated another hologram, showed a massive fortress world, then showed it, unmade, not destroyed, disassembled, piece by piece, as if gravity itself had been weaponized. Day 12, I target your main fleet anchorage, 200 ships. I give 24-hour evacuation warning. Then I destroy them, not with missiles, with something traveling at 0.99 light speed. Relativistic kill vehicles. By the time your sensors detect them, they've already hit. There is no defense. The hologram showed ships exploding, not from weapons fire, from kinetic impact, from small masses that will be traveling so fast they hit with force of nuclear weapons. Day 30, 75% of sector fleet is gone. Not destroyed, disabled, captured, preserved. Because I'm going to need those ships later, when we rebuild, when we help you become something better. Thorn looked at Voran. Day 40. I start on hegemony. Your economy is next. I don't destroy your trade routes. I take them over. I don't bomb your factories. I occupy them. I don't kill your workers. I put them back to work. Under human supervision. Vorahan's crystal body had multiple cracks now. Stress fractures spreading. Day 50, the Hive Collective. Interesting challenge. How do you fight a consciousness spread across billions? Answer: you don't. You isolate it. I have technology that can sever hive connections, make drones individual, force over mind to experience what it's like to be alone, to be one instead of many. Zektar's mandibles stopped clicking. Complete silence. Complete horror. Day 60, the Celestial Alliance. Hardest of all. How do you fight beings of pure light? Answer: you don't fight them. You contain them. I have fields that can trap coherent photons, make them solid, force them to experience what it's like to be physical, to be trapped, to be helpless. Shaylin's light dimmed to nothing, barely visible. That's the 60-day war. That's what happens if you make me fight. If you force me to use these weapons. If you make me become the monster I've spent 37 years trying not to be. Thorn leaned on the table, looking exhausted suddenly. Older. Or you can surrender. Now. Accept that you've lost. That humanity is no longer a species you can threaten or conquer or guide. That we are equals, partners, neighbors who deserve respect. Long silence. Finally Shaylin spoke, light barely a whisper. The Celestial Alliance surrenders. We were wrong. Gravely wrong. We accept your terms. Vorahan's chimes were soft, broken. The hegemony surrenders. We misjudged. We will respect human sovereignty. This we promise. Zektar's mandibles click once, slowly. Hive Collective surrenders. Human capability exceeds projections by orders of magnitude. Continued conflict is suboptimal. All eyes turn to Salreth. The war matriarch sat in her chair, scales shifting through every color. White to black to red to orange to green. Fear to rage to shame to calculation to resignation. Finally, her scales settled on deep blue, color Ashford had never seen, color that meant something deeper. Sorrow. My people killed your husband and daughter 37 years ago, without cause. Without reason, simply because we could, because we saw you as beneath us. Scales darkened to midnight blue. Today, you showed us we were wrong, not just about your military capability, but about who you are, what you're capable of becoming. You could destroy us right now, and you choose not to, not because you're weak, but because you're better than we are. She looked directly at Thorn. Admiral Sector Empire does not apologize. We do not ask forgiveness. We do not beg mercy. These are not our ways. But I will say this, we were monsters to you. We took something precious. And you responded not with vengeance, but with patience. Not with destruction, but with demonstration. You became strong enough to hurt us, and chose not to. Scales shifted to pure silver, color Ashford had never seen, never knew existed in Sector Spectrum. It was the color of profound respect. Sector Empire accepts your terms. We will honor human sovereignty, treat your species as equals, as worthy opponents who chose to be friends instead. This I swear on my honor as war matriarch. Thorn nodded. Some tension left her shoulders, but not all. Good. Then we need to discuss something else. Something I haven't shown you yet. Something I hope I never have to use. She activated her neural implant again. Helios 1, decloak, let them see. High above Nexus Station, something appeared. Not a ship, a platform. 30 kilometers in diameter. Spherical, covered in what looked like solar panels, but weren't, were something else. Something that made sensors scream in warning. On every tactical display, the power readings were impossible. Off the scale, beyond measurement. What is that? Vorahan whispered. The Thorn said quietly, is Helios 1, a star killer, a weapon that can extinguish suns, make planets freeze in 6 hours, kill every living thing in a solar system without firing a shot, just by turning off their star. She looked at them. I brought it here to show you, to make you understand exactly how far humanity has come, how much power we've built, how easily we could destroy not just your fleets, not just your planets, but your entire civilizations. Every world, every colony, every person, gone, frozen, dead. Silence. Complete, total. The kind of silence that comes from existential terror. I brought it here, Thorn continued, voice very soft, to show you, and then to show you what I do with it. She activated her implant. Helios 1. Power down. Recloak. Return to standby position. We won't need you today. The massive platform, still visible, began to glow, then faded, then disappeared. Recloaked. Gone as if it had never been. I have 7 of those, Thorn said. 1 near each of your homeworlds. 1 near 3 other potential threats. 1 in reserve. I built them over 20 years. Tested them in dead systems. Made sure they work. Made absolutely certain that if I ever needed to use them, they would function perfectly. She sat down. And then I decided I would never use them. Never. Not for any reason. Not if you invaded. Not if you killed the billions. Not if you did to humanity what you threaten today. Because using them would make me a monster. Would make me the thing I've been fighting against for 37 years. The empire that destroys because it can. That kills because it's easier than building. That takes the coward's way. Thorn looked at each of them. I built 7 weapons that could destroy everything. And then I chose, consciously chose, deliberately chose, never to use them. That choice, that simple choice, is what separates humanity from every empire in this room. That choice is what civilization looks like. That choice is what Richard would have wanted, what Lillian deserved. She stood. So now you know. You know humanity has power beyond your comprehension. You know we could end you at any moment. You know we are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And you know we choose not to be dangerous. We choose to be guardians instead of tyrants, protectors instead of predators. Ashford spoke for the first time since Thorn entered. There's a Latin phrase, Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. We prepared for 37 years. We built weapons of unimaginable power. We became capable of genocide. And then we chose to be something better, something wiser, something worthy of respect. Thorn extended her hand toward Zalreth. So here's my final offer. Work with us, trade with us, be our partners. Trust that we mean what we say. And if anyone threatens, you call us. We'll come. We'll help. And then we'll leave. No strings. No hidden agendas. Just neighbors helping neighbors. Zalreth stared at the offered hand. Small human appendage extended. Gesture representing trust, partnership, equality. She reached out, took it, felt the grip firm and warm and alleged. For our daughters, she said quietly. For the future. Outside the window, human fleet hung motionless, waiting, watching, ready, but hoping desperately, hoping they'd never need to show just how ready they truly were. 18 hours later, Nexus Station. The negotiations had gone through the night. 4 empires and 2 humans hammering out details of peace none expected to need. Trade routes, territory boundaries, non-aggression protocols, technology exchange, mutual defense. The tedious, exhausting, absolutely critical work of turning revelation into lasting policy. Admiral Thorn remained throughout, watching, listening, occasionally interjecting when discussion drifted toward old assumptions. Her presence alone kept conversation honest, reminded everyone what humanity was capable of if this peace failed. Now 0600 station time, there was a pause. Legal teams drafting formal language, diplomats consulting governments. Everyone taking moment to breathe. Thorn stood at observation window looking at fleet, at ships that had waited patiently through night, would continue waiting as long as necessary. Garrett Ashford joined her, two old soldiers looking at instruments of war they'd built. Answer to promise made 37 years ago. Richard would be proud, Ashford said quietly. Would he? Thorn's voice was tired, strained. I built weapons, Garrett, weapons of unimaginable power. I prepared for genocide. I made humanity into the thing we feared. Would Richard be proud of that? You prepared for defense. There's a difference. Is there? Look at those ships. Each carries enough firepower to sterilize planets. Retribution alone could crack moons. We didn't build a military, Garrett, but built instrument of annihilation. And I commanded it, ordered its construction, trained crews, made myself monster so humanity wouldn't be victims. Ashford was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, voice was gentle. If you know what the difference is between us and them, between humanity and every empire in this galaxy. What? We had power to destroy them, right now, this moment. 240 ships against their fleets. We could have won, could have disabled every vessel, occupied territories, imposed will. We had capability. Justification. They literally voted to divide us up. Self-defense would have covered anything we did. He turned to look at her. But you didn't. You gave them choice. Offered peace. Extended hand to species that killed your family. That's not monstrous, Eve. That's something beyond heroic. That's wisdom. That's leadership that builds civilization instead of destroying them. I wanted to, Thorn admitted softly. When I gave decloak order, when I walked into conference room, when I saw Xalreth and knew her people killed Richard and Lillian, I wanted to hurt her. Make her feel what I felt. Wanted her to know what it's like to lose everything. But you didn't. No, because somewhere between that bunker 37 years ago and today, I realized something. Revenge isn't victory. Pain isn't justice. If I destroyed them to avenge Richard and Lillian, I'd be teaching Galaxy that might makes right. That power justifies anything. That strong can do whatever they want to weak. She pressed hand against window. And then 50 years from now, 100 years from now, some other species would become strong enough to challenge humanity. And they'd do to us what we did to empires. And cycle would continue forever. War after war, conquest after conquest, until someone finally built weapons that could destroy everything and was willing to use them. So you chose differently. I chose what Richard would have chosen, what Lillian deserved. A galaxy where power doesn't automatically mean oppression, where strong species protect weaker ones instead of exploiting them, where we're better than our worst impulses. Ashford nodded slowly. That's why they're going to agree to everything we ask, not because they fear our weapons, but because they respect what we chose not to do with them. Behind them, conference room door opened. Galreth emerged, scales thoughtful orange. She approached two humans carefully, respectfully. Admiral Thorn, Ambassador Ashford, legal teams need another hour. I wondered if we might speak privately, three of us. Thorn exchanged glance with Ashford. He nodded slightly. Of course, matriarch. What's on your mind? Zalrith moved to stand beside them at window. For long moment just looked at human fleet. Ships that had upended her understanding of galaxy. I need to tell you something. Something I've told no one outside immediate family. 10 years ago my daughter was killed. Commander Zalith, 32 years old, brilliant tactician. She was leading patrol near Hegemony border when dispute over mining rights escalated. Hegemony vessel fired, destroyed her ship, killed everyone aboard. Scales shifted to deep blue, grief. I wanted war, wanted to mobilize every ship in sector fleet and burn Hegemony space until nothing remained. Wanted revenge, wanted blood, wanted them to hurt like I was hurting. Why didn't you? Thorn asked quietly. Because Hegemony offered reparations, apologies, offered to punish commander responsible, offered everything except what I actually wanted, which was my daughter back. And I realized war wouldn't give me that either. Nothing would. Zalit was gone. All violence in Galaxy wouldn't change that. Salreth's scales shifted to silver again, that color of profound respect. So I buried my daughter, accepted hegemony's terms, continued being leader instead of grieving mother. It was hardest thing I've ever done, and I thought I understood sacrifice, understood loss, understood what it meant to choose duty over personal pain. She turned to look directly at Thorn. But I was wrong, because I only had to make that choice once. You've been making it every day for 37 years. Every time you look out at those ships, every time you train those crews, every time you prepared for war you hoped would never come. You've been carrying your grief and turning it into something constructive instead of destructive for 37 years. Jalreth's voice became very soft. Admiral Thorn, you are strongest warrior I've ever met. Not because of ships, not because of weapons, but because you had power to hurt us and chose mercy instead. That takes strength no sector warrior has ever possessed. Strength I'm not sure I could have shown in your position. Thorn was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, voice went thick with emotion barely controlled. Thank you, matriarch. That means more than you know, but I need you to understand something. I'm not special. I'm not uniquely strong. Any human in my position would have made same choice, because that's what we teach our children. That's what we believe as species. Power exists to protect, not to oppress. Strength is measured by restraint, not violence. And true mark of civilization is what you choose not to do even when you could. Is that why you waited? Jalreth asked. Why you built all this capability and then just watched for 37 years? Partly, we wanted to be sure, wanted to know if you were genuinely threatening or just posturing. Wanted to give every opportunity to choose cooperation. Wanted to exhaust every alternative before revealing ourselves. Thorn looked at Fleet again. But also, we wanted to build enough power that when we finally did reveal ourselves, there would be no question, no doubt, no possibility of miscalculation. We wanted you to look at our capabilities and understand immediately that war was not option. That only rational choice was peace. Deterrence, Ashford added. Cold War doctrine. Build weapons so terrible their existence prevents their use. Make cost of aggression so high no one dares be aggressive. But Cold War almost destroyed your planet, Jalreth said. I have read your history. Multiple times your species came within moments of nuclear annihilation. Yes, Thorn agreed. Because we had multiple powers with comparable strength, each believing they could win, each willing to risk everything rather than back down. That's why we built such overwhelming capability. We didn't want parity. We wanted supremacy, so complete no rational actor would challenge us. She turned to face Jalreth directly. But we also learned from Cold War. We learned having weapons doesn't mean using them. That greatest strength is knowing when not to strike. That real security comes not from being able to destroy your enemies, but from making them not want to be your enemies in first place. Which is why you offered peace, Jalreth said slowly. Why you gave us choice. You could have simply conquered us, occupied territories, imposed will, but that would have required actually using those weapons, killing billions, becoming what you feared. Exactly. Jalreth's scales shifted through several colors. Processing, understanding, accepting something profound about species she'd dismissed as primitive. You have taught Galaxy something today, Admiral. Something we'd forgotten over millennia of conquest and competition. You've reminded us that civilization is not measured by power. It's measured by wisdom, by mercy, by choice to be better than we have to be. She extended clawed hand toward Thorn, sector gesture of ultimate respect. One warrior acknowledging another as superior. Sector Empire owes humanity a debt. We killed your family, threatened your species, dismissed your capabilities, and you responded not with vengeance, but with patience. Not with destruction, but with demonstration. We will remember this. We will honor this. And we will ensure no sector ever forgets what you taught us today. Thorn took offered hand, felt scales cool and rough against the skin. No debt, matriarch, just partnership, just cooperation, just two species choosing to be neighbors instead of enemies. That's enough. They stood like that for a moment. Two warriors from different worlds, different species, different philosophies, united by loss, by understanding, by hard-won wisdom that comes from choosing peace when war would be easier. Behind them, young human lieutenant approached nervously, saluted. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from Sector Homeworld. Multiple transmissions actually. Their surrender offers, ma'am. Unconditional surrender from all four empires. Thorn's eyes widened. She turned to Zalreth. Matriarch, what is this? Zalreth's scales were silver. Pure silver. No other color mixed. We consulted with governments during night, showed them your capabilities, your technologies, your restraint. They've reached same conclusion I have. That resistance is futile. That continued conflict would be suicide. That only rational response is complete surrender. We don't want your surrender, Thorn said, voice sharp. We want partnership, cooperation, not submission. I know, but my government does not. They see your power and assume you will conquer. Assume you will occupy. Assume you will do what any rational empire would do with such overwhelming advantage. They don't yet understand humanity is different, that you actually mean what you say about peace. Vorahan had emerged from conference room during conversation, crystalline form chiming with anxiety. Hegemony as well. Our economic councils calculated cost of war with humanity. The number is infinite. We cannot fight you, cannot compete, cannot survive as independent civilization if you choose to destroy us. So we surrender. We offer everything, territory, resources, authority. We submit to human rule rather than face annihilation. And Hive Collective, Zector added, mandibles clicking rapidly as he joined them, has reached consensus. Probability of successful resistance 0.03%. Probability of extinction if war continues 99.97%. Logical action, complete submission to human authority. Shaylin's light was very dim as she floated over them. Celestial Alliance concurs. We have spent millennia believing we were most advanced civilization, most enlightened, most capable of guiding others. Today, we learned we are children compared to humanity. We surrender. We ask only that you be merciful in your rule. Thorn looked at Ashford, saw her own horror reflected in his eyes. No, she said firmly. Absolutely not. We are not accepting anyone's surrender. We are not ruling anyone. We are not building empire. That is exact opposite of what we want. Admiral Voran chimed desperately. You cannot refuse. Our governments made their decision. Our species accepted humanity is now dominant power. If you don't take control, there will be chaos, power vacuums, civil wars, billions will die in transition. Then your governments need to make different decision, Thorn snapped. Because humanity is not interested in ruling galaxy. We're interested in living in it. Peacefully, as equals, as partners, not as conquerors. She looked at each of four representatives. Let me be absolutely clear about something. Yes, we have overwhelming military power. Yes, we could conquer your empires if we chose. Yes, we have capability to impose will across galaxy. But we won't, not ever, not for any reason, because that would make us tyrants. And humanity has fought too many tyrants throughout our history to become one now. But what do you want? Zalreth asked. If not surrender, if not submission, if not control, what does humanity want from us? Thorn took deep breath, looked at Ashford, saw him nod. We want to be left alone, to build our civilization in peace, to trade fairly, to defend ourselves if necessary, to cooperate on mutual interests, to be neighbors who respect boundaries and honor agreements. That's all we've ever wanted. That's what Richard wanted when he flew toward that sector ship 37 years ago. He didn't want to conquer it. He wanted to protect his family, keep them safe, live in galaxy where you could look at stars without fear. She walked to window, looked at fleet, 240 ships representing 37 years of preparation, sacrifice, determination. But since you can't accept that, since you insist on treating us as conquerors just because we're powerful, since you won't believe we actually mean what we say about peace, we're going to have to demonstrate it again, more clearly this time. She activated neural implant, voice transmitted to every human ship, every crew, every person who trained for this moment. All units, this is Admiral Thorne. New orders, protocol withdrawal, effective immediately. Ashford's eyes widened. Eva, are you sure? Yes. It's only way they'll understand. She looked at 4 Empire representatives. Humanity is withdrawing from Galactic Coalition. We're pulling out of all mutual defense pacts, all trade agreements, all diplomatic treaties. We're returning to our space, closing borders, ending all official contact with Empire governments. What Voran's chimes became discordant. That's isolation. That's abandoning Galactic community. Yes, because Galactic community cannot accept us as we are. You keep trying to make us fit your patterns. Conquerors or conquered, rulers or ruled, dominant or submissive. You cannot conceive of species that's powerful but not aggressive, that's capable but not expansionist, that wants peace more than power. So we're leaving, taking our ships, our technology, our capabilities, going home. We'll maintain border patrols, defend our territory, respond to threats. But we're done trying to convince you we're not going to conquer you. Done accepting your surrender. Done with all of it. She looked at each. When you're ready to treat us as equals, as partners, as civilization that deserves respect rather than fear. When you're ready to believe we actually mean what we say. Come find us. Our borders will be open. Our diplomats will be waiting. Our friendship will be available. But on our terms. Not as your rulers. Not as your subjects. As your neighbors. Nothing more, nothing less. 4 representatives stood in shocked silence. Finally, Salreth spoke, scales shifting rapidly through multiple colors. Confusion, fear, understanding, respect. You're serious? You're actually leaving? Yes. But what about threats you face, dangers in border regions? Pirate fleets raiding your colonies without coalition support, you'll be vulnerable. Thorne smiled. Not pleasant. Matriarch, I just demonstrated we can disable your entire fleet without firing shot. Do you really think we're worried about pirates? But what about us? Vorahan asked desperately. Without humanity's presence, old conflicts will resume. Territorial disputes, economic wars, cycle of violence, your revelation temporarily interrupted. If you leave it all falls apart. Then don't let it fall apart, Ashford said. Your ancient civilizations, millennia old. Surely you can figure out how to coexist without humanity holding hands. Surely you can choose peace for yourselves instead of having it imposed. But we don't know how. Shaylin's light flickering with distress. We've been competing so long, fighting so long, maneuvering for advantage so long. We've forgotten how to simply be neighbors. Thorne looked at her. Really looked, saw fear, genuine uncertainty, species that had spent so long claiming moral authority, they lost track of actual morality. And she saw something else, opportunity, way to teach lesson that needed teaching without becoming tyrant they feared. All right, she said slowly, here's what we'll do. Humanity will not rule you, will not govern you, will not impose will, but will offer something else. Something different. What with Zector's mandibles clicked hopefully. Protection for anyone who needs it. Any species threatened by aggression. Any civilization facing conquest. Any people who cannot defend themselves. If they call for help, we will respond. We will intervene. We will stop aggressors. And then we'll leave. We won't occupy. Won't demand tribute. Won't impose governments. We'll just stop immediate threat and go home. She looked at her fleet. We're calling it Protectorate Force, an independent military not bound to any government. not serving any empire, just responding to distress calls, just protecting those who need protection, just making sure what happened to my family doesn't happen to anyone else. That's unprecedented, Vorahan chimed. A military force serving no government, asking nothing in return, intervening purely out of altruism. Yes, because someone needs to, because galaxy needs guardians, not conquerors, because power should be used to protect, not oppress. That's what Richard believed. That's what Lillian deserved. That's what humanity will provide. Ashford was smiling. Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. We prepared, built weapons, trained forces. Now we're using them exactly as meant to be used. For defense, for protection, for making sure weak aren't victimized by strong. But who decides what constitutes threat? Zalreth asked. Who determines when intervention is justified? You're talking about enormous power with no oversight, no accountability, no checks or balances. You're right, Thorne admitted. It's dangerous precedent, potentially disastrous. That's why we're implementing strict protocols. Intervention only when specifically requested. Clear rules of engagement, limited objectives, and complete transparency. Every action we take will be recorded, broadcast, made available for any species to review and judge. And if you abuse this power, Zektar asked, if you become what you claim to oppose, if Protectorate Force becomes just another empire, then you will have been right to fear us, and we will have failed. Failed Richard, failed Lillian, failed ourselves. But that's risk we're willing to take, because alternative is worse. Alternative is galaxy, where strong prey on weak with impunity, where no one stops aggressors because everyone too busy being aggressors themselves, where cycle of violence continues forever. Thorne walked to center of room, looked at each representative in turn. 37 years ago I made promise that what happened to my family would never happen to anyone else, that humanity would be ready, that we would protect.
Today I am keeping that promise. Not by conquering you, not by ruling you, but by being guardians this galaxy needs. Species that's strong enough to intervene, but wise enough to leave afterward. Civilization that uses power to protect rather than oppress. She extended hand toward them.
All of them. So here is my offer, one last time. Work with us, trade with us, be our partners. Trust we mean what we say. And if anyone threatens you, call us. We'll come. We'll help. Then we'll leave. No strings, no hidden agendas. Just neighbors, helping neighbors. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Shaylin drifted forward. Light brightened slightly. Celestial Alliance accepts not your rule, but your partnership, your protection if needed, your friendship always. Vorahan's chimes became harmonious. Hegemony agrees. We will learn to trust, learn to believe, learn that power can be benevolent instead of brutal. Zektar clicked mandibles in what might have been hive laughter. Hive Collective calculates probability of successful cooperation, 94.3%. Acceptable odds. We agree. All eyes turned to Jalreth. War Matriarch stood silent. Scales shifting through every color, every emotion, every possibility, finally settled on silver. Sektar Empire agrees, not out of fear, not out of submission, but out of respect, out of understanding you've shown us something we didn't believe possible. That strength and mercy can coexist. That power and wisdom can be same thing. She extended clawed hand toward Thorne. We will be your neighbors, Admiral, your partners, your allies if you need us. And we will remember, we'll teach our children, we'll pass down through generations what you taught us today. That choice between can and should is what separates civilization from chaos, guardians from tyrants, friends from enemies. Thorne took her hand, felt scales warm now, accepting, trusting, for our daughters, for all our daughters, for everyone who deserves to live without fear. For the future, Zalreth agreed. Outside window, human fleet was to move. Not attacking, not threatening, just repositioning, preparing to return home, to wait, to be ready, to be guardians they'd promised to be. 10 years later, 2035, New Terra Colony, Memorial Day, Admiral Evelyn Thorne walked slowly toward graves. 72 now, hair completely white, face lined with age and responsibility. Walked with cane, left knee finally gave out 2 years ago. Too many decades standing on bridge decks. Too many hours in artificial gravity. But still Fleet Admiral, still in command, still leader of Protectorate Force that had responded to 43 conflicts in past decade. That had stopped 17 attempted conquests. That had saved billions of lives across dozens of species. Still keeping promise. Behind her, Garrett Ashford walked at respectful distance, 75, officially retired, but still attended these ceremonies, still stood witness, still remembered. Memorial on New Terra had grown since last visit. What had been 2 graves was now wall. Black stone engraved with names, 40,000 names, every person who died in conflicts. Protectorate Force had stopped. Every life saved by humanity's choice to be guardians instead of conquerors. And at top, in letters larger than rest, 2 names. Richard Thorne, Lillian Thorne. Thorne stood before wall, reached out, touched letters of her daughter's name. Hi sweetheart, Daddy and I came to visit, to tell you what we've been doing, to show you what your sacrifice meant. She gestured at wall, at names. At memorial that had become place of pilgrimage for species across galaxy. 43 conflicts resolved, 17 conquests stopped, 56 billion lives saved. Not bad for 10 years work, not bad for keeping promise. She was quiet for a moment. Sector have joined us. Did I tell you, Zalreth's granddaughter, they named her Lillian Saltara. She commands joint sector human fleet now, fighting beside us, learning from us, teaching us things we didn't know about warfare and honor and sacrifice. Hegemony has opened markets completely, free trade across all borders, economic integration like Galaxy has never seen, prosperity for everyone, including species that used to be exploited. Chancellor Voran calls it Thorne Doctrine. I told him to call it something else. He didn't listen. Hive Collective has been fascinating. They've started experimenting with individual consciousness, allowing drones to make own decisions. Zekta says they're evolving, becoming something new, something better. He credits humanity's example, says we taught them unity doesn't require uniformity. And Celestial Alliance. They've stopped trying to guide everyone. Stopped assuming they know best. Shailin retired 3 years ago. Passed leadership to someone younger. Someone who understands wisdom means knowing what you don't know. Thorne wiped eyes. They were wet. Had been since approaching memorial. We did it, baby. We built galaxy you deserved. One where little girls can look at stars without being afraid. Where no mother has to watch her husband die because we weren't ready. Where power exists to protect instead of oppress. She knelt down, slowly, painfully, knee protesting. Ashford moved to help, but she waved him off. This she needed to do herself. She placed something at Memorial Base. A medal, the one she'd worn every day for 37 years, made from Richard's fighter, engraved with their names. I'm giving this back to you because I don't need it anymore. Don't need reminder. Don't need motivation. Promise is kept. Work continues. And I absolutely know you'd be proud. She stood up with effort, with pain, with the dignity of someone who'd earned every gray hair and wrinkle and moment of suffering. I love you, sweetheart. I love you, Richard. And I absolutely promise, that as long as I'm breathing, as long as there's strength in these old bones, I will make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. That's my oath. That's my purpose. That's meaning I found in losing you. She turned to leave, stopped, looked back one more time. Oh, and baby, there are kids playing in square behind us. Human kids, sector kids, hegemony kids, hive kids, celestial kids, all together, playing, laughing, not caring about species or empire or history. Just being kids, just being friends. That's your legacy, Lillian. Not ships, not weapons, not protectorate force. Those kids, that future, that's what you bought with your life. And it's beautiful. She walked away from Memorial. Ashford fell in beside her. They walked in silence for a long time. How much longer, Eve? Ashford asked finally. How much longer can you keep doing this? You're 72. You've earned retirement, earned peace, earned rest. Until there's no one left who needs protecting, Garrett. Until Lil's distress call goes unanswered because there are no more distress calls. Until Galaxy figures out how to be civilized without needing guardians. Or that might never happen. I know, but Lillian deserved better. Richard deserved better. All those names on that wall deserved better. So I'll keep going, keep protecting, keep being what they needed me to be. Even if it kills you. Thorne smiled. Especially if it kills me, because that would mean I died doing something that mattered. That I spent last breath making sure someone else didn't have to lose what I lost. That's not bad way to go. They reached square. Saw children playing. Saw adults watching. Saw mixture of species that would have been impossible 10 years ago. Now normal, natural, expected. Young sector child, maybe 8 years old, ran up to Thorne. Scales bright green, happy, excited. Are you Admiral Thorne? Yes, I am. My grandmother told me about you. She said you saved her life. She said you're reason I get to exist. Thorne knelt down, slowly, painfully, looked child in eyes. What's your name, sweetheart? Lillian Saltara. Thorne's breath caught. She reached out, touched child's scales gently. That's beautiful name. Very beautiful. You take care of it, okay? Honor it. Be brave like person you're named after. I will. I'm going to be protector when I grow up. Just like you. Going to keep people safe. Going to make sure bad things don't happen. Thorne smiled through tears. That's good, Lillian. That's very good. Galaxy needs more protectors, more guardians, more people who understand power exists to protect, not oppress. You're going to do great things. Child hugged her, quick and fierce and innocent, then ran off to play with other children. Thorne stood up, watched her go, watched all of them go, running, laughing, living in Galaxy that 37 years of sacrifice had built. That's why she said to Ashford, that's why I keep going, for her, for all of them, for everyone who gets to grow up without fear, because we chose to be better than we had to be. Her communicator chimed. Message. Urgent priority. She activated it. Read text. Face became serious. New distress call. Unknown species. Galactic rim. They're being attacked by someone with 50,000 ships. They're asking for help. 50,000. Ashford's eyes widened. That's full-scale invasion. How many ships can we commit? Thorne smiled. We'll send 100. That should be more than enough. Eve, are you sure if enemy really has 50,000, then they're about to learn what humanity has known for 10 years. Numbers don't win wars. Technology does. Training does. Wisdom does. Willingness to fight for something bigger than yourself does. She activated fleet-wide communication. All units, this is Admiral Thorne. We have distress call. Unknown species requesting protection against overwhelming force. Protectorate Force Gamma will respond. 100 ships, standard intervention protocols. Remember what we fight for. Remember who we protect. Remember we are guardians, not conquerors. That we save lives, we don't take them. That we demonstrate strength through restraint, not violence. She paused. And remember that somewhere in Galaxies, there's a little girl named Lillian who wants to grow up to be like us. Let's make sure we're worth emulating. Thorne out. She looked at Ashford. Want to come along one more mission? One more chance to show Galaxy what humanity stands for. Ashford smiled, touched prosthetic arm, reminder of where this all began. Wouldn't miss it for anything. Richard and Lillian deserve to see this, deserve to know their sacrifice keeps paying dividends. They walked toward the landing pad. Two old soldiers, two guardians, two people who had turned grief into purpose, pain into protection, loss into legacy. Behind them, children played in square, human and alien, friend and future. Generation that would never know fear Thorne and Ashford had lived with. That would grow up in galaxy where strong protected weak, where power meant responsibility, where civilization was measured not by what you could destroy, but by what you chose to save. That was promise kept, door that had been locked from inside. 37 years of preparation that had changed galaxy forever, not through conquest, not through domination, but through simple revolutionary choice to be guardians instead of tyrants, to be protectors instead of predators, to be civilization every species aspired to become, instead of empire every species feared. And as Thorne's shuttle lifted off towards stars, toward another conflict, toward another chance to demonstrate power and wisdom, could coexist, one thought echoed through her mind. This is what strength looks like, Lillian. This is what your father died for. This is what you deserved, not ability to destroy, but wisdom to know when not to. That choice, that simple choice, separates everything. Guardians from tyrants. Civilization from chaos. Friends from enemies. And that choice will echo for generations. For our daughters. For all our daughters. Forever.